Welcome to Bitcoin Aggregated. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to do a podcast just because we've been crazy busy doing Bitcoin stuff, really, for the most part, I think. We've got a really awesome guest today, Andy from Amber. He reached out over Twitter. Really, it was really synchronous, actually, because we were kind of just chatting about Amber, I think, like the day before, Chris. And then you tweeted, and we're like, "Oh, that's weird." Like, yeah, and it was, really, really cool to link up that way. But Andy, do you want to tell us about yourself and Amber and what you've been building and all the cool stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. So I head up growth at Amber. We're a Bitcoin only platform, which is the only way to be, right? And yeah, we're a small team still. We're Aussie based. Hopefully, most of your audience are aware of who Amber is. But yeah, we've got big plans and some lofty goals. But yeah, so my role is ultimately overseeing growth there, working with our various team members uh, in taking Amber to market. And outside of that, I'm definitely a growth geek. I love all things growth. There's always something new to learn, much like Bitcoin. You feel like you've just learned, you've got somewhere, and then it's like, oh, wow, there's this whole other facet to learn. So yeah, and then beyond or after hours, I'm working on. It's a bit cliche to say, but I'd love to challenge education as it's known. So been building an application called opencour.se, which I think would be really helpful for people in the early stages of their Bitcoin journey. It's not its original intention, but I'm kind of excited where it could potentially go.
Just saw your face light up, Kieran, the minute he said education, and you're like
Yeah, man.
like
Nah,
a kid in a candy school.
yeah, man. You gave us a run through last week on the platform, and I was like blown away. So essentially, I've ran a few people through the project already, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's amazing!" Essentially, it's like Spotify but for education. So the concept is you can sort of plug in all these different MOOCs and courses and stuff that's online, and pulling from all these different resources to create like a tailor-made course, like to give to other people. I thought that's such a clever idea that it's kind of weird that it doesn't exist yet. Like, it's just like, how is this not a thing already? This is crazy. So looking at that specifically, like I was thinking, like, you've got an MVP already, right? But like, to me, that's what the Bitcoin industry needs across the board, because there's so much disjointed stuff like all over the place that we're all just kind of teaching ourselves, like mining, lightning network, like all these like really complex ideas and concepts, but no like cohesive way to sort of go through it. It's just like kind of feeling around in the dark. But did you want to give us a run through on the platform, Andy?
Yeah, by all means.
See if you got
So
sharing permission if you want to share your screen. Yeah, you should.
yeah, so before I dive in, sort of what you were saying, I think is also a really interesting, consideration for Bitcoin in itself. It's like, well, what we've learned ultimately in adoption is that, there's not one size fits all. And so I think that without getting all woo-woo, it's like, is something to be aware of. Everyone's learning journey, everyone's path to education or hero's journey can differ, and we all take in, obviously there's different learning styles, different techniques, and I think we have to be respectful of that. And what I ultimately noticed in the research and the interviews that I was doing with folks was that people were sort of paralyzed with where to start. So what should I learn next? Ultimately, how much time do I have? How much money will it cost? We're always making those time preferences and those decisions. But what I kept hearing is that people were sort of looking at other people and looking, okay, well, how did you get there? Like, how did you get to that level of knowledge? And they felt that that was some sort of clue or blueprint. You could both list out some folks that I think that you admire, whether it's in Bitcoin or more broadly. And I'm sure we'd all give like some sort of value to getting them to give you a list ultimately. Like, this is how I got here. And you know, that's a great starting point. So the whole platform is ultimately based around it being user-led, and allowing people to follow other folks that they respect, and ultimately, take clues from, well, what did they learn to get to that point. So let me just kind of grab my screen. And it's like, it's fairly early on, like, so please
No, but
appreciate.
the UX is awesome. It looks.
We've all worked at startups. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I know. When it's your own, like when it's your baby, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, you try not to grow attached to it, but it's so
No, like,
pretty...
but for like an MVP, the UX is like, it's really clean interface. It's awesome.
I don't know. Obviously, we can drop the link in the show notes, but yeah, let me just get this. Sorry, now you put me on the spot, but I like it.
Sorry.
That's cool. It's cool.
I tend to do that with people.
That's all right.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll talk a bit about Amber as well, because I think it's such a cool platform, and the thought behind it, I think, is the most important. So, like when myself and Chris were talking about a project that we're working on for education as well, specifically around security and BTC, obviously, the the company that came to mind first was Amber. And I think that the main thing around that, obviously, like, you know, people working there are really cool, and the public profile is really cool as well. But the DCA aspect, I think, is the most exciting. So, like, dollar cost averaging, I can't think of another company anywhere in the world really that has that as the forefront of the company. So it's like, you know, every other like most of the BTC or exchanges that have other alts and that sort of thing on them, it's kind of like around the concept of you putting your money in and then them keeping your crypto, quote unquote, on the exchange. Whereas Amber kind of has a different philosophy for that. It's like DCA each week. This is what I love. There's like even a calculator on the website. I was looking just before. So it's like, all right, if I was DCAing from this date till this date, this is what I'd have, and this would be in your wallet, sort of thing. Such a cool mindset. I think it needs to be like the standard for exchanges. Like, there's so many honeypots out there, and we've all seen, like, obviously with the Optus hack a couple of weeks ago. Like, why have we got these?
Don't start me on the Optus.
Yeah, it's
Too
just
close.
Celsius doxing
It's
over
a
the
sore
last like
spot.
24 hours.
Yeah, I know, right? How's that leaderboard? Wow. Oh my
It's literally
gosh.
happening everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Amber for a long time. I've known
Yeah.
Alex for several years, and I've been using Amber for several years as well. And it's basically my go-to recommendation app. If someone says like, "Oh, where do I buy Bitcoin?" I'm like, well, just do this. Like, seriously, like, don't try to be an expert and jump on some exchange and, you know, pick the highs or pick the lows, sell the highs. Like, just come on, just don't muck around. This is a strategy pretty much that's going to look after everyone on an automated basis. And I just don't understand why you introduce all that stress and risk of trying to trade and be smarter than the next guy. I don't know. I'm not a trader, so, which is probably obvious, and I've said that many times before. So Amber works perfectly for me. Like, if it didn't exist, I'd want to build it, but it's built, so I don't need to build it. I'll just use it and I'll promote it
It's a really
because I
good
think
point.
it's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, we were just talking about this off air before. I'm like, I just try to, like, when I start businesses, I just try to solve my own problems, because I'm not that unique. There must be other people out there that also suffer this problem.
Yeah.
And I want it solved, and no one else is solving it well enough for me to be a customer of theirs. So I may as well try to do it myself. Sometimes I don't always achieve that, of course, and someone else ends up doing it, but that's great, right? Like, the service that now exists. And with Amber, that's how I feel about it. So I'm like, awesome. I'm going to use it. It's awesome.
I love to hear it. No, it's all, yeah. In itself, you know, it obviously needs some explanation. Some people will have questions, and we'll try and understand it as to the why you would dollar cost average. And yeah, you could you could do analysis based on ROI. Sure, you could consider it and weigh it up, and that's a good idea. Everyone should do their own research and homework. But the resounding message or comments that people seem to have, similar to what you've both just described, is that if you're early on and you're just trying to build that muscle, like that confidence, it's a good way to start. It's low risk. You can, once you have some skin in the game as well. Sorry, it's a bit of a cliched saying, isn't it? But you then seem to, it's only natural. You will investigate further. You'll continue to then validate retrospectively, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But you can then validate more and more. So I think it's time in market, not timing the market, which I think is the big thing that DCA holds up. And so, we love to facilitate it. A lot of our users really love and appreciate it. There will still be folks who want to buy ad hoc, and that's cool. That's totally fine.
It's fascinating because it's such a weird mindset, I guess, for normies, quote unquote, where they kind of look at the news, look at the price, and that's guides them. Like yesterday, I had an electrician out to sort out a plug for my miner. So a 15 amp plug, which is causing way too much noise. But anyway, but yeah, like when he was about to go, I was like, oh, cool. Like, what's your bank date so I can pay you using Elros to do it, right? So like on the Lightning Network, I'm like, here you go. So I showed him sort of how it works. And I was like, do you just want the BTC instead? Like, is that better? Like, I know you got a kid on the way or whatever, it's probably the way to go. Nah, that's cool. Maybe if it was like 6 months ago, I would have, but
right.
No. I was wow. It's the opposite.
But you get more. You get more of it. Like
that's
It's fascinating, right? It's such a fascinating thought experiment. So 6 months or a year ago, hell yeah. But no, not today.
Well, it's an interesting proposition.
They're still denominating in fiat, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I was really like, I mean, I've had that so many times, but I thought maybe we were kind of on a different path by this point, but no, it's the same.
We're in a bubble. I was thinking about my experiment of like not checking the price for the entirety of the year. Like, I don't know anyone else doing that. I literally opened, not that I'm like overly famous or anything, but to my Twitter audience of however many few there are, I said, does anyone want to see if you can not look at the price for the whole year? Like, I'm not a gambling man, but I was like, all right, no one wants to do it. I'll just do it. Like, and it's been hard, but like, that's how, and like, again, Amber sort of plays into this low time preference mindset where like, it doesn't matter what the price is today, tomorrow, next week, next month. Heck, I don't even care what the price is next year. I'm thinking like way, way, way further down the track. And so like a dollar cost average strategy just suits that kind of mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah. But you said it, you have to denominate in sats or Bitcoin, it's a constant challenge mentally to reconcile. If you are always reconciling in fiat, that's so setting the goal, I think first and foremost in sats or Bitcoin is a good place to start, right? And then as you've been doing, Chris, that's, shutting off that noise, that signal, but that's a chasm, right? That's a chasm for folks to cross to get to that point of belief.
It took me a decade.
So
I make it sound like it's so easy, but no, it literally took me 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, it does, I think to that same mindset of people, like quote unquote normies, they have in their mind that like hodling's easy, right? So it's like, oh, well, you bought at that day, surely like you've still got it like today. They don't realize like all the things you have to do in between. like it's tough. It's really tough. Like the security, there's all this stuff, and the learning that goes with it. Like it's huge.
The temptations.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, and those do form some objections, right, and some friction points. But I think inherently, if that person's motivation and belief structure is well aligned to the principles of what Bitcoin is and does, and then it's not hard to get around it. I think like where we're at right now in terms of the adoption, we are obviously pushing further and deeper into people who are probably less naturally inclined to go there, So that's something we keep in mind. And I always say we need to have a level of tolerance. I know that some people don't vibe with that, and they think that people are stupid if they don't get it. But it's it's
I just think
frustrating, of
everyone's
course.
stupid anyway, including me. Including me.
Yeah. Sometimes you can get pretty frustrated, but then you just buy more Bitcoin. That's the best tonic I've found. Um, but
No, I like that. Yeah. Ever feeling
yeah,
down? Just buy more Bitcoin.
yeah,
It'll
we have.
what's the meme? Bitcoin fixes this. Like whatever's the problem.
Yeah. I would love to have like a big red button in the app that just says, you smash it when you're really frustrated, and you just set the limits, and you can just, vent by smashing the red button. I think that would be that's when you've got to get off Twitter. But um, but yeah, I think everyone's on their own sort of journey, and just being mindful and aware of that. DCA may not make sense immediately. But I love to hear it. Thank you for your kind words. It means a lot, I'm sure, to the team and myself to hear such advocacy. So yeah, appreciate it.
Got to support good products.
Yeah, 100%. On that note, should we get into the news, or did you want to go more into your startup?
Let's do the news, and then we can do the startup at the end. But yeah. I've got it ready to go. I'm good to go now. So
all right, sweet. All righty. Yes, it's can you guys see that okay?
Yep, that's up.
Sweet. It's been a whole bunch of stuff actually. This one I thought was interesting, and I wanted to chat about this the other week when we didn't get to do a podcast, but the hash rate hit an all-time high again, and I think it's still at an all-time high now. With the price dropped by 90%. So I mean, it's so clear to me why that is. But again, speaking to anyone sort of outside the space, they don't really know what you're talking about. Like when you say it's at an all-time high, yeah, BTC is an all-time high. Like we've got more power in the network than's ever been. Either they look at that as a negative and they'll be like, well, that's you're boiling the planet or whatever.
That's some small-sized country.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, or whatever narrative is happening sort of that week in terms of that FUD, or they just don't understand it. And it's like, well, no, but the price is down. It's fascinating. I find it so fascinating but I think because we've been in with this technology for so long, it's just sort of innate, all-time high in hash rate. That's amazing. Like this is an amazing project that's been built. But talking to anyone outside the space, I think it kind of goes over their head. And I think, again, it comes back to EDU around that, I suppose, and willingness to learn. So I think that combined with I think we posted something about the ETH merge on here as well. That narrative around the Ethereum merge and Ethereum being better for the environment, it's sort of collated into this weird space at the moment where you have all this negative FUD, including news.com.au. They had, I think I posted that as well, some FUD around it, being bad for the environment. I'm like, God, this is
Didn't Greenpeace jump on board as well?
It's never ending. Yeah,
never ending. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's getting the right information to people.
I think this was always coming though. There was always ever going to be one dominant proof of work chain. And I think we all kind of knew a while ago it was going to be Bitcoin. And this is kind of just solidified that with the whole move to proof of stake kind of thing. But I think it is interesting because if you wind back not that long ago, with China banning Bitcoin mining and the hash rate, I can't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me here, but dropping a significant percentage essentially overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take too long for that trend line to kind of go back to where it was going and then go some more. And that's where we're at today, where it seems like almost a weekly basis. These metrics, another good one is the Lightning Network capacity.
Absolutely.
That seems to be on a really similar trajectory in terms of breaking all-time highs, just regardless of what's going on in the wider kind of Bitcoin economy with the price and all that. I do know it's down, even though I don't know the exact number. I do know it's down. But yeah, I find all that really fascinating. And there's obviously probably a lot of variables that play on that stuff. But I don't know, Bitcoin just seems stronger than ever.
It is. I was listening to just talking about the Lightning Network. I was listening to a podcast this morning about doing like the equivalent of Tether, so like a peg to the USD on Lightning specifically. And they went through like all the technicals. It was kind of over my head, I have to say. But essentially you put, so it's not Strike, so it's not like BTC in USD or whatever out on the other side. Like it's the opposite of that. So basically you're filling up your channel, and they have a name on it. I forget what the name is, but basically anyone can use that as USD whatever. So USDL, I guess you could call it. Literally paying each other over the Lightning Network, and it's dollars on the other end. Thought, geez, that could be like a killer app as well, like that for all the people, like particularly countries that are using Tether. I know that's a big pain point where they just want US dollars. These guys have kind of addressed that. It sounds kind of centralized a little bit from the sounds of it. I think it is an open framework, but to start with, it's kind of centralized on one organization doing it that then can be replicated out. So
do you think that'll be the trade-off for subsequent layers on top of Bitcoin? Now we're maybe getting a little bit philosophical here, but if like we use the kind of internet analogy with all of the services built on top of the internet where people make their money off the open protocol that underlines everything, like email clients and just Zoom, everything, like all the services built on top of it. Do we think like there could be that kind of economy for Bitcoin, perhaps, where people provide a genuine service that people are willing to pay for, except perhaps not with their data, hopefully,
Absolutely.
but maybe with Sats as the universal currency? What do you guys think about something like that?
I think there's so many amazing and exciting things happening on that layer. I think, again, we're so early, right? We just have to keep reminding ourselves that. And, I think, we all grow impatient and want it to move faster, but the sheer speed. I think I saw a graph the other day about the Bitcoin adoption versus internet adoption, and it's outpacing it according to that graph.
Yeah.
So, I think, it's hard. In our lifetime, hopefully we see all of this. We may only see a slither of it, but it's pretty bloody exciting.
I don't know. I reckon it's going to be pretty quick. Like, I guess everything's relative, right? But if you think about like the internet, like we've kind of seen, we've gone through the whole thing, right? It's from dial-up to fast internet to, well, I mean, I only just got 5G, in Australia, right?
Take that back.
Other parts of the world have gotten
there.
We've kind of seen it all, right? So we're doing like video chat, and before this, it was like pretty rudimentary, and it was only a few sort of nerds using the internet. Like I remember dial-up, IRC chat, and playing Quake, whatever, and no one else is using it, and then it's just like exploded and everything's built on it. So I could see it happening pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like our internal Slack is just constant with things that are being released and we're noticing out there. And so, it can be quite overwhelming, to be honest, to see how much development and evolution is happening. But it's pretty exciting. In terms of your comment about the hash rate, it's an interesting one because people understanding and grasping that, I think, is part of what we were touching on earlier, is just people's ability. You have to really keep coming back to just fundamentals, hey. And as much as that seems really fundamental to us, it's I think it's that, like, people are so built up on what they already know. It's that change. It's that change piece. And so I think we were talking about this recently. It's like skeuomorphic design in my eyes is like really, I think I watched the meetup that you guys did recently where you were talking about wallets versus signing devices and how that can be slightly misleading. And
cool.
You take that for granted, right? You sort of, you could talk about each one so much, and spend that time. But I think one of the best ones that I always advocate or recommend to people is 21 Lessons. I think just for that contextual element, different perspectives and stuff like that.
Through is that through Bitcoin Magazine?
GG's.
Carrot? Is that the app?
Yeah, I think they've done a collab with them on it, but it's no, it's not that one. It's the
Not
book
that one.
itself by Gigi. Yeah.
Right.
I'll link it to you.
Yeah, please.
It's different perspectives. So essentially a collation of obviously different people and their exposure to Bitcoin and from a technical or technology perspective versus a money. And yeah, it's cool how it all comes together. But for some people, my point is that fundamentally they only understand it once it's contextually joined those dots, like it. And that's why I think medium of exchange can't come soon enough, because I think once people are transacting on a daily basis, like your electrician, like that's a watershed moment, that will, people won't even, dare I say, people might not ever understand hash rate, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Because they just trust that the network is what it is and does what it needs to do, and they don't need to think about it. But that's not where we're at right now. I feel like, you have to justify or have to explain things to people to gain their confidence, but maybe we don't. Maybe it's just that tipping point. Yeah.
Maybe it's just us, right? Maybe it's just exciting to us, but
that's it. Yeah.
Matter. Yeah. Agreed.
Totally. At some point it won't.
That's right. But for now, we have to sort of continue to educate on as much as possible. Yeah.
Until that point, I'm going to be a nerd.
There's a few.
What else you got for us, Kieran?
Yeah, what else jumped out?
Very good. Actually, this was awesome. Now, have you guys seen anything about the Philippines and the Bitcoin island?
No, but
I think it might be popping up a little bit, but I don't know much about it.
So it was on Bitcoin Magazine today as well. I don't know too much about it, but it's a hell of a lot closer than El Salvador. That's for sure. So to put you in the picture, Andy, like I was meant to be presenting at El Salvador. We're both going to a conference over there. I've had to cancel because of been able to get there, which is really annoying. But if these guys are doing any sort of conference, I reckon we all hit it up, because it's not too far to go, really. But it sounds like they're doing a similar sort of thing, like, building out circular economy, the same as they're doing in Africa, the same as they're doing in a lot of places in Latin America. But yeah, it's cool to see it in a country so close to us, with a big need for it, I think, like from the sounds of it. I've got friends that are Filipino that have family over there, and I think there's a lot of poverty, and they could really, really do well from that. But yeah,
we just don't need something like that in the country here, right? Like, I mean, it would be awesome to have, don't get me wrong, but like we don't have like a dying need per se. So like you see these kind of little, I call them little bruises that just start swelling in different parts of the world. And we've seen it with Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. I'm going to be going back there again in November, but I'm also going to be going to another place called Bitcoin Lake, which is in Guatemala, which sounds really awesome, that I only just heard about recently as well.
I just saw that. I saw that this morning as well. It was in the same article. I'm like, that sounds incredible.
Yeah. So like there's these little pockets just kind of popping up out of nowhere all around the world. And it's really fascinating to see. And I think it was Andy that said it, like being able to actually use it is that like kind of inflection point where you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. And like there's so many signs and signals out there, like literally every day, like PayPal with what they did recently over the last sort of day or so, it was just like, to a Bitcoin, you're like, ugh, like, you know, like have we not been telling you for years and years that
was that the update to the terms and services?
Yeah, basically they could just take $2,500 off you for whatever reason. Like the problems that have existed since centralized companies were formed, essentially, that Bitcoin fixes, right? So until you kind of use it and you go to these places where they are using it and they're taking the sort of front foot approach, as opposed to here in Australia, which, you know, we're not this proactive with at least our Bitcoin understanding and stance. I can't wait to go see some of these places, and maybe Philippines is, like you said, not that far, so maybe we could go there soon.
Definitely.
I'm keen. Yeah, it's interesting to watch, and yeah, I think we're all excited for these countries and people who are, you know, I guess in positions where they need it more, you know, and it's exciting to see them get that benefit. You know, we are obviously just curious and really obviously invested, and we've done the education, but these people are going to experience it firsthand, which is, you know, the benefits of Bitcoin, which is super exciting.
And at the same time, it's kind of frustrating because like we've all been pushing it for Australians for so long, and to sort of have it fall on deaf ears for the most part, it's kind of irritating, right? Like, kind of like, really, can't we have it here? But at the same time, these people need it more than most of the people here, so that's the way.
I think it's that thing about change, isn't it? It's like, well, even
Yeah.
like one person switching from one app to another app, you know, wherever you bought your Bitcoin, or you know, we're all just such creatures of comfort, and you know, you may have some pain, but how much we endure is crazy, you know. To not have to go through that. And like Chris pointed out, it takes moments like the recent PayPal series of events, you know, and that might not even trigger a bunch of people.
For most people, it won't.
Nah. It's just not it's not on their wavelength. And I get it, because at one point a lot of other things weren't on my wavelength, and probably right now plenty of things aren't. But Bitcoin has been the thing that's kind of been the central path, the main sort of train to take you across that journey. And then you start noticing a lot of these events. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Now that I kind of understand how money works and how Bitcoin works, I understand what's going on here. Whereas previously, it's like no one tells you this.
No. It's like the ultimate beta Meinhof, like where once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, it's like everything's like, oh wait, oh no. And you become really mindful of becoming a conspiracy theorist. But yeah,
I was one previously. I mean, I don't know I'm not going to self-proclaim that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but like I grew up and I was like interested in different ideas on things. I think that's why I latched onto Bitcoin quite early and resonated with it. Like Zeitgeist and all those movies, and like In Plain Sight, you know, 9/11, all these open questions. You're like, as a teenager or like late teens, you're kind of like, this is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Zeitgeist was a great film just for the monetary aspect of things. Like, I got a lot from that about learning about money and what it is. I think it was brilliant film, really, for the most part. But yeah, that term conspiracy theorist as well. It's like, what? Nobody's ever conspired to do anything bad? Like, why are we using this term still? So strange. But yeah.
I think it's... you go, mate?
No, go for it.
I think it's just that mindset that you sort of touched on, Chris, which is so important, especially for young people coming through, is that verify, don't trust. And having the ability to question, and it's okay, you know, like you don't then have to then become a full-blown skeptic and you know, never get on board anything, but just having the mental power to sort of reason long enough, and also to tolerate other people's opinions. You know, I think it, you know, can be hard at times. But sometimes that's where, like, again, I'm not soapboxing, but I think that's what Bitcoin actually, to give credit, has given me more than anything, is just that awareness to question long enough. But explaining it to someone is a bit, I don't know, some people look at you like, what, really? Like,
but just like to your point as well, discernment. So it teaches you discernment as well. So like being able to sort of critically look at stuff and pull it apart, particularly when it comes to like, well, now more so than ever, I suppose, altcoins and, you know, all these different sort of fads being built out that look kind of similar to Bitcoin, but they're not Bitcoin at all. It really kind of forces you to look at everything in that sort of lens, I think. So yeah, there's so many positives.
Well, that's what I like what you guys are doing here with this, is like helping people, and that's where the benefit in unpacking some of the technology. You know, so Chris, you and I have had separate conversations where it's like, well, on the surface it may look the same, but then, you know, you start to look at things and just staying in that mode where you truly and genuinely understand. I think a lot of people, when it comes to crypto, like, you just jump at it because someone told you that, you know, you could make a lot of money, but would you morally or ethically align with that? You know, if you actually knew what it was about or what it was trying to achieve, and if so, fine, you know. But I think that's probably going back to your earlier point of, you know, people understanding on a meaningful level these things. That's a challenge. But yeah,
it takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours, I'm realizing. And I've put hundreds or thousands already in, and it's not like I've just gotten to the end. I'm like, cool, crack a beer open, I'm done. Like, it It doesn't quite work like that. Not to like
No.
discourage people, because like you can certainly consume as little or as much as you'd like. There's certainly more hours of the day that I could dedicate to it, even though it seemingly feels like there isn't, but I'm sure there's more. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to learn everything. There's just no way you could. But, you know, you start small and you figure out the things that kind of important to you or that interests you, and you follow that path. Sometimes the path is a dead end. You come back and you've learned that that's a dead end. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Sort of moving on, because we've got a fair bit of stuff here, I suppose. This podcast here, I don't know if you guys checked it out. Watch the video if you get a chance. So this guy, Ben Ark.
I think I've seen that one.
Oh my God. So he's building all this cool tech, open hardware with Lightning, specifically so you can, you know, set up shop, so I think Peter's going to...
I might have met this guy last year in El Salvador.
Oh, legit?
Maybe. There was a bunch of people doing some weird hardware Lightning stuff. And now that you've told me what he does, it kind of rings a bell, but I could be wrong.
Maybe it was. But super cool. I was like blown away by some of the stuff that they're doing on there.
I have to check it out.
It's a full hour. So yeah, check it out. But I mean, just so cool to see like the
awesome
hardware getting built, and they're doing it in an open fashion. So meaning you can go and 3D print all the stuff, get the hardware yourself, get the whatever you need for whatever device it is, and build it out yourself. I'm like, that's
very cool.
I don't know how they're funding everything that they're doing, but whatever, I guess with Bitcoin. But yeah, super cool. So check that out. There was like we alluded to before, a couple of FUD articles as well. So your news.com saying, you know, Bitcoin's dead again. This one, this conversation one really irked me. I think we were going back and forth on this one, Chris, on Twitter or something.
Well, there's been a few of these ones saying, you know, it's a failed experiment and the economy's ruined, as if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
I'm assuming I haven't read this one, but I'm assuming it's along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Hawkins writes quite a lot of content.
Oh, that's right. We spoke about this.
We did speak about it. Yeah. Was it on Bitcoin Aggregated or probably something else that we were telling? Who knows?
Might have just been messaging each other, but I remember the name now.
Yeah. You should invite him on the show.
I think that was our plan, actually.
You actually said that. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear his point of view. Like he does, I have come across quite a number of pieces that he's done. I don't know how many exactly, but he has a strong view on the counter.
Formerly a senior economist with the Bank for International Settlements. So I reckon he's probably got a bit of a bias.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, maybe we do as well. But
that's right.
Yeah, true.
Surely, like even anyone with a slightly open mind could perhaps go down and have a conversation about you know, Bitcoin as a settlement layer and its peer-to-peer sort of global reach that it has compared to, you know, banks. Like, I mean, that's like one obvious starting point that we could perhaps have with John, and maybe we'd still disagree at the end of it, but at least we could have, I think, a fairly robust discussion about that.
Well, even just that piece there, right? Like Lightning does that better. So Strike does that better. Like
we can't just end of conversation.
Like if you can't see, like he obviously hasn't done any research whatsoever, right?
No.
So looked into it.
I think I made like a on-chain transaction maybe over the weekend, and it cost me 20 cents. 20 cents Australian.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, I mean, I don't even look anymore, like not because I had that much Bitcoin, but like I just know it's cheap. Like, and I'm not even using Lightning. Like Lightning is even cheaper, but like I was like 20 cents. Like I don't even need to think about that.
To be honest, I haven't used on-chain, and I can't even remember the last on-chain transaction I did. It's been Lightning, everything, like bit refill, like everything's on Lightning. What was the well, you don't have to say, but what was the reason that you had to use on-chain? Because I haven't had one in a long time.
I think that's where, like, just here in Australia, we've not really got a strong Lightning kind of. I feel like it just doesn't get talked about much. It literally wasn't until last year where I went to El Salvador that I used Lightning for the first time. Like I'm a little bit embarrassed about that, and I haven't had a need really. Like on-chain is just easier in the sense that more people kind of use it, get it, talk about it. So if I'm going to send someone Bitcoin,
do you do Lightning for CoinStop?
I think our crypto sort of plug-in thing broke or something. So we
Oh,
at the
really?
moment aren't yeah, so I need to reset something up, but maybe I could do like a BTC pay server or something.
Yeah.
And set up my own node. I should be able to do something like that with my node, I imagine.
Hell yeah. We should figure it out so we can do the same for Alpha for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's a good point. Actually, there's probably a lot of merchants that are still only doing on chain and doing alts as well. I know I was at a christening the other day, and it was like people gambling on crypto. So it's like some gambling site. I'm like, oh, what are you guys using? Oh, Litecoin because it's cheaper. I'm like, oh man, but like we got Lightning.
I actually got a question for Andy. This is a bit of a like detour, but I'm curious as a customer and a fan, when Lightning integration with Amber.
Yes, sorry, that should have been.
That'll get me.
I felt it was coming. Yeah, look, I won't speak on behalf of the product team too much, but it's definitely in the works, and it's something we're as excited about as both of you. And yeah, hopefully soon we can announce / confirm and get it in the hands of people. But
sorry, we won't hold you to a date or anything. It's okay. But
no, it's
I'm very happy to hear it's being worked on. And I think like to the point before where we were looking at the Philippines and talking about these little like bruised areas, as I called them, like we've got to create that. Like, and it's companies like Amber, like Alpha accepting Lightning payments and like paving the way. Not like we're pioneers or anything, but like it's just if we all do a little bit, then that's how we kind of get it more on the map. And you know, I'm certainly admitting to me being undercooked in this department because again, the environment around me doesn't like. As soon as I go back to El Salvador, it's going to be like all Lightning. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's just going to be like I'm not even going to be thinking about on chain. But I just thought it was funny that on chain was actually really, really cheap the other day, like 20 cents. Like that's
incredible.
Cheap. Yeah, I was shocked. Even when it's like $1.10 or something, I'm like, that's fine. Like I could be sending like 100 billion. I don't have 100 billion, but I could be sending that much, and it would be $1.10. Whereas if did that through the traditional markets, we know that's a flat percentage rate, or maybe not flat in the sense that it doesn't change, but it's a high percentage rate, and that's a lot off like 100 billion, of course. But yeah, I'm happy to hear that, Andy, and thank you for the inside word.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No
I'll be tweeting that and promoting it wide and far.
Yeah.
I was doing that.
Wow, no, it's hopefully I don't get in trouble with the product team, but
we'll hold off on promoting it until until we've used it, because like you said, don't trust, verify. So we'll verify.
That's it. Don't get any hopes or expectations up. But just know that it's definitely something we're excited about. So stay tuned.
That's awesome.
Speaking of trust, did you guys see this one?
Wow. That's a dumpster fire right there.
Oh my God.
The funny thing is, this isn't even the craziest thing that's happened since this got released. And this was only released like 2 weeks ago. Like some more crazy shit with Celsius has happened since then.
Really?
Like,
really? Oh, right.
Well, with like all of the customers getting doxxed. Did you not hear about this?
Yeah.
No, I missed that.
Oh my God. Literally
there's a leaderboard.
Yeah, every single client of theirs got doxxed. Their amounts that they had, like everything. Like
Jesus.
Yeah. So like they got rug pulled, and then like, and we're gonna throw you data and we're gonna shame you online.
Man.
Yeah, it's ugly. And I really feel for those folks. Obviously they're probably hurting from poor decision, but to have it online like that is pretty sad to see.
Wow. I'm just getting so much more conviction in the fact that like KYC is evil. Like
it is. Yep. 100%. And it's stupid.
It does not help.
Right? It's dumb. So like going back to the Optus thing from before, like there's no need for a telco to have all that information. None whatsoever.
Nah.
Why do you need that? You don't need it. It's because they're probably getting pushed from government to collect all this data, to track people, whatever. But no, it's not good enough. Like you can't treat everyone as a criminal because there might be one bad guy out there somewhere. It's ridiculous. So I think we need to really push back. That's why I love Session. Like the Session app's so cool. Like there's zero need to have any other information except for that hash or that ID piece for that.
Just like a Bitcoin wallet, right?
Exactly.
Like Bitcoin is private per se by nature, but
Exactly.
there are obviously now touch points that reveal our identities. But yeah, I the funny thing about the Optus hack, I just saw like 2 days ago, someone posted something, and I'm not quoting this word for word, but basically it was like the government basically came out and said, we want more identity, so in the future hacks like Optus can't happen. And I just like could not. I'm like, is this a circus? Like, what is actually going on?
It's like The Onion. It's like an article from The Onion.
No, this was legit. I was like,
Legit,
I'm done.
yeah.
Like, I'm gonna walk out of here in a minute. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Wow, that's insane. Well, I mean, gosh, well, I'm gonna have to check that Celsius thing. Hopefully, my deets aren't on that because I was a customer for a little while.
It probably is. We'll dig it out.
Probably public.
You're gonna get your public shaming.
Yeah. But that
luckily you got out before it was too late.
Yeah,
you only lost your data.
I didn't have much on there anyway, and I think it was F, so whatevs. But but still, like the fact that my data's on there, that's crazy. But the fact that they're gonna do like an ERC20, I'm assuming, for an IOU, like how disgusting! Like what a slap in the face is that? Like, and that shows like how ridiculous one this company is, but two, like how these tokens just getting spun up to do all sorts of nonsense. Like it's, but getting conflated with BTC. That's what aggravates me so much, because you'll see like people looking at that and thinking, oh, that's all Bitcoin, yeah, like Bitcoin's bad and this is what's happened. So no, it's two completely separate things. This is a ridiculous centralized system built not even on top of Bitcoin, just stealing people's Bitcoin for an IOU, for God's sakes. Like, what the hell? Mental.
It's pretty
Wild stuff. All right, let's carry on. Oh, there's a bunch of FUD. I thought we might go into that, but let's skip all that. This is really interesting, I thought. So this is from an article, I think, and then she.
Oh yeah, I spotted this one.
Yeah. But the idea, so the tweet goes, if you had 1 million USD in your bank since 2015, the purchasing power today in USD is 700,000, in Turkish lira is 140,000, in Lebanese lira it's 40,000, in the Argentinian peso it's 30,000, and the bolivar is $2. Good God, that's insane. That's a short amount of time, right? And then finally, BTC is like a ridiculous $61 million. But I mean, like the concept behind that, I think, is, or the crux of it is like fiat and hyperinflation, right? So that's what all these countries are going through, and you can see it case by case. Even the US. So like the US dollar, which is meant to be the strongest and like the base for everything, that's how much you've lost in that short amount of time. It's like it's a no-brainer, but people still can't see it for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's a case of zooming in or zooming out, and getting people to zoom out is not as easy as it sounds. And it is definitely, I think, encouraging. Like that sounds kind of sick, but
it's encouraging these numbers.
Yeah, well, for people to consider change, it's that the pain of same versus the pain of change, right? And so currency is a big one. What you use every day and have done for your whole life to date is to challenge that paradigm it's quite a big one, as you both know. So seeing these sort of movements hopefully will get people to think a little bit deeper and to sort of sit up. Like one of our recent pieces that we did, the dollar milkshake theory by Luke Mikic, had huge engagement. And so people are getting curious. They're starting to go, something's not right. And I need to learn more.
So that's encouraging, as you sort of said earlier, willingness to learn. It seems to be growing. A similar piece that did very well was stagflation. And again, like if you said that at a party or like socially, some people would go, "What the
Move away from
what?"
you.
Yeah, exactly. You
I know
just
that
part.
sex move. Yeah,
Yeah. Part the crowd. That's not a trick. uh,
yeah.
anyhow, but people are reading it, people are engaging with it, and they want to know more. You have to obviously break them down, but it's encouraging, and I think currency is going to be key to that.
I think we're starting to feel it here. Like it's certainly not perhaps at like the bottom end of those levels of what we just saw there in that tweet, but like the classic is the price of petrol and the cost of food and groceries and the things that people consume on a regular basis. So they've got like a pretty good understanding. It can't really hide. Whereas like the other stuff, you can kind of, fluff a few things and market your way out of it. And before you know it, people they got enough distractions and they are like, oh yeah, the price houses got like the house is going up in value. But like the stuff that really hurts is like, your bread and your milk and your petrol and your rent and all that sort of stuff, the stuff that you pay close attention to. So yeah, I always feel bad saying stuff like this because like we all know like it's quite a doom story where it's likely heading with fiat currency. But there have been thousands of fiat currencies over human history, and they've all essentially failed or gone to zero. And it's a little silly to suspect or to believe that the US dollar is the outlier in that, or the Australian dollar, or any fiat currency currently around is going to be the one, the needle in the haystack. It's like, Rob's not.
Well,
I'm jumping on the Bitcoin raft because I'm like, that's probably the strongest boat we've got at the moment. It
hard money.
Hard money. And I hate to be like a realist, but yeah, they're all probably going to do the same that every single one previously has done.
Absolutely. Well, on that note as well, so this was another article that jumped out at me. So the Dow Jones is now officially more volatile than Bitcoin. So like the idea that you could put your money into things that would be sort of stable, that's historically most people would do, right? So it's like instead of keeping it in the bank account, people sort of in the know, I suppose, would sort of trade stocks or not even trade stocks, just invest into things. Now it's officially more volatile than PTC, which is like, what? That's mind-blowing.
How far does that news spread though? I'm looking Finbold. I've never heard of that, but
yeah, true.
Is this like you see this sort of stuff on news.com? Not that that's like the top of the range journalists, but you know what I mean? Like
not at all,
in terms of mainstream, this narrative isn't really getting spoken about.
Won't get far. Yeah, you're right.
And to me, like this to me is just like a fluff piece anyway. Like, all right, cool. You picked one little point of data and you've made a story around it. You could easily do that with another point, and now suddenly the Dow Jones is stronger than Bitcoin. Yeah, that's not what interests me. But like, it may turn a few people, so it could be helpful for them,
Yeah, it may not have I agree, Chris. It may not have as much a broad impact. Quantitative easing and the risk of that. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the graph that's going around how quickly they've raised rates in comparison historically to other rate rises. And this is like
it's vertical.
Yeah. And so, I think that hits home back to your point contextually where folks feel it in their pocket. And I think everyone's worried about interest rates and home loans and mortgages, etc. And the impact that has. Again, I'm with you. No one wants to sound alarmist. Like that's not a way that nor do we want to achieve growth. But you sort of obviously also want to stay true to your morals and what you believe in, and that you want people to be aware of some of this stuff. So it's that self-reconciliation. I think that self-censorship that they spoke a lot about in COVID as well, which is probably the scariest. It's like, well, just having these conversations with folks, open conversations, it should be okay. You should be allowed to discuss it.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting I'm right about everything. I'm probably wrong about most things, but at least I'm willing to have the conversation about it, and I form my position off different people I talk to, and whether they're right or I'm right or none of us are right, we're trying to figure out what is right, and we may never find it all, but we're trying. We're not just believing what one person's saying or following the collective narrative. I think that's important.
Well, I think it's kind of exciting as well. Like I was telling you, Andy, during the week, at the Social Ventures event that I ran and spoke at as well. But talking to people sort of outside of our bubble, I think it's really good, like for yourself, just to see where people are at and to be able to sort of disseminate information in a palatable way to people that would have never got that information before. So like going to a Bitcoin conference or going to even education conferences that have like sort of tech components where there's people kind of open-minded about technology. This had none of that whatsoever. So it was really, really people that I don't think would have got any of that information otherwise. So I found it kind of fun, to be honest, and kind of different. Now I know we've got sort of minimal time. There's one last thing I wanted to share with you guys. Actually, this GitHub here. So this guy, what was his name? Ben Ark. He's actually put a bunch of stuff on GitHub that lets you actually turn a light switch on and off by sending sats to it. I was like, that's incredible.
So good. I love people like that. That's
It reminds me of the one where like the chicken gets fed. Have you seen that one as well? You can feed the chicken by sending it Bitcoin, and then like the little feeder drops down and some gravity fed seeds go in or whatever the hell it's eating.
Oh, that's awesome. So send me that link, please.
I'll have to dig it out. Like someone showed it to me.
Yeah.
I can't remember who showed it to me years ago, but
that's awesome.
I hope it's still going. This is like
that'd be awesome. Just earning BTC. And the other thing I wanted to share was this OpenStego resource. And this is another thing on GitHub. It goes to our conversation the other night, Chris, like talking about seed phrases. And basically what this lets you do, and I've been playing around with it today, is you can actually set up an image. So say we could take a photo of the three of us now and embed a seed phrase into that with
wow.
It's nuts.
What decrypts it?
And so the same software. So but you can do it offline as well, obviously. So you can do everything offline. So you get a laptop that's never connected to the internet, whatever. Chuck this on, chuck the image on, and it encrypts it, decrypts it. And it does, I think it's 256.
What do you got to do to decrypt it though?
Well, literally put in your password.
Wow.
So it's like the image plus your password match up. And I was like reading some article, this guy who's like done it with all 24 words, like different images. And like,
wow, that's cool.
So like, well, that's a maniac, but still.
It's psychotic behavior, but I love it.
Yeah, it really is, but that's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, I love to see that.
But yeah, definitely worth having to play with if you get a chance. But anyway, before we finish up, did you want to share your screen, Andy? And
oh yeah, sure, cool. Yeah, of course. The grand unveiling. So I guess I should start by saying that we're just about to head into beta. It's been a bit of a slow process. We've essentially done everything just by contractors to date. And so our next step is to sort of get it in the hands of some folks and do further validation. We've done a bunch of interviews and so on so far. But yeah, so here you can see it's essentially a database. It doesn't discriminate is the core thing to sort of understand here. So when you think about education, this can comprise of any sort of learning opportunity, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube video, a tertiary degree, anything really. And it's all user-led. So if I come down here and I want to share with someone an awesome learning opportunity, I can just add it in. We'll then vet it, make sure it's genuine. And then that then allows people to create lists. So it's not geared up for Bitcoin right now, but I would actually like to take it in that direction. It's mostly around sort of growth. There's one listing. There you go. But what you ultimately can then do is create learning lists, which is what we were talking about earlier. So say if I click on this, I could then save it. At the moment, it's a singular list. We will have multiple lists, which is where like the Spotify for learning sort of comes in. And then you can follow folks. So say if I've started to create lists, then people would be able to discover or find me. And then they may share it on LinkedIn, they may share it on Twitter, they may share it anywhere. This is my learning list, check it out if you want to get good at this. But the kind of cool part that we're excited about is this, and it will have, obviously, we imagine a tipping point, won't happen overnight, are these reviews. So there's some sort of validation, verification that's worth doing. So say if they're putting their hand out for $60,000 for a course, or they're putting their hand out for $2,000 in there, and it says on it, it says that it will take 12 hours, 100 hours. Like, you can then start to go, all right, is that worth my time? Some of that is available already. But what this brings together is an aggregation of all learning that people can ultimately help you decide whether it's worth doing. You're not like locked into a library in one place. You're not hunting around on YouTube looking for stuff. It's all here. So it's a bit of a lift, but hopefully that all made sense.
Absolutely. I think you were showing, what was the search you did last time? NFTs. I think that had a bunch.
So there's a database of about 12,000 right now. Again, that's just a starting point.
Yep.
So if you want to learn about 10 top selling NFT creators in 2021, this is actually an article. So again, it doesn't discriminate. Like, I've heard from people in the interviews that people can get sometimes just as much value from reading a blog article as they can from doing a 4-hour course or doing a degree in some. That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
all the content on there is like, I can't share something I found somewhere else on the internet on this place. I have to actually create the content itself, so it can't be plagiarized in that sense.
You can bring in people's content, and so you don't get the credit for it. So you would submit it. If you find something online, you're like, this is awesome, then you add it. We'll add it to the database, and then people can then start to interact with it.
Okay, nice.
You get a rating for your curation. Is that correct? So like, say I've gone and created this curated list of stuff that I think is really important. People rate that list and rate you for creating that. Is that correct?
Hopefully, yeah. We're still really early on, and some of those features will, I guess, work themselves out. But yeah, we would love to give credit or karma to people who are great reviewers, great list builders.
Sats, maybe. Sats would be cool.
Yeah, would love to facilitate that. So looking for a good dev lead. So yeah, if anyone's like itching to sort of, I would love to introduce some sats and some sort of functionality where we can figure out some of those problems. I'm seeing this as, like, again, not to get on my founder soapbox, but like decentralizing education in some ways. Where it's not locked in and it's not owned, where you have to sort of essentially just giving people a really effective way to find meaningful education validated by their peers and by people they respect, rather than, feeling the pressure of having to go and do it somewhere because that's the best school. Don't get me wrong, that may still work for people, but yeah.
What's the so is there like a subscription model as an end user, or what? How's the money
right
side
now? Like, that's such a good. So ideally, like right at this point in time, this is yet to be obviously validated, but it would be a B2B situation at this point in time. But again, we'll take learnings. I just want to get people across it. So hopefully we can launch this year. I said it's very much a side hustle. My focus is Amber, and that's where my energy mostly lies. But if I can get this out and sort of start to validate some things, I think that offering a per member cost, because see what the interaction between employees and their manager, even so, like, they could say, hey, I would focus on these 10 things. These could be great for you. They could leave notes. So as they do each learning, they could leave a note. They could tag their manager. They could say, hey, I really got this out of it. I thought this is applicable to a problem we're trying to solve, and so on. So I think that's something that I'm passionate. I'd love to see come to fruition, is learning for problem solving rather than learning for just the sake of it. Don't get me wrong, I also appreciate there's a use case where people just want the certificate and want the badge and they want the cred, and that helps them get to the next step. But let's face it.
This sounds right up my alley. Like that you sold me with that point just then, like learning for problem solving. because that's exactly how I learn and why
Absolutely.
I sucked at university, and just does not work for me at all. I'm just, I got a problem. Let's fix it. Like, there's plenty of resources. Like, it's manual labor by sifting the internet and trying to figure out reading articles. But I guess you're saying like it can be done through this platform, curated. I mean, this sounds like a great idea.
Thank you. Well, yeah, there's a lot of questions than answers, more questions than answers at this stage, but yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
It's a startup.
Yeah.
We've covered that. They're hard.
Yeah. So,
I think it's
amazing, Eddie.
I think there's probably a lot of bleed over with Amber specifically. So if you could tailor it to BTC, I could see it like sort of complementing your role at Amber as well. So might be something to pursue down the track, I suppose.
Get them to fund it, you reckon?
Well, get it integrated somehow. Or, I don't know. I think there's because there's such, like, I love the problem-based learning angle, and I think that's how everybody learns, obviously. Like, you know, rote learning and memorizing stuff out of a book, like, it's fine, and some people are really good at regurgitating stuff, but true learning is problem-based learning 100%. What problem do you want to solve, and what's important to you? I think it's something that doesn't really get asked in school or university or sort of higher ed. So I think MOOCs and being able to take that journey and doing it yourself using tools like that is 100% the way forward. So yeah, hats off, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
doing God's work.
I'll keep you updated, and again, no dates, but yeah.
I've got to skedaddle, guys, because I'm 1 minute late for my next Zoom.
All good.
All right. So
thanks so much, Andy, and we should do this again, because I think we've only sort of scratched the surface on a lot of topics there. So we'll
this has been one of my favorite discussions, and we've had some really fun discussions. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Likewise. Thanks all. Have a good night.